Welcome to News9 Live, and you are watching On Point with me. And before I introduce you to today's On Points, let's take a quick look at the headlines. Loikta registers FIR against Karnataka CM Siddaramaiah in Muda case. Jagan Reddy cancels Tirumala temple visit amid Laddu Rao. He charges Naidu for using Hinduism for political gains. Supreme Court wraps Delhi Air Quality Panel over stubble burning pollution. In run-up to polls, Haryana Congress expels 13 leaders for anti-party activities. Amit Shah slams Rahul Gandhi, asks if he knows full form of MSP. BJP wins Delhi Civic Body Panel poll after AAP Congress stay away. First shipment of Bangladeshi Hilsa arrives in West Bengal ahead of Durga Puja. Israel strike in Lebanon kills Hezbollah drone unit head. Hurricane Helene pummels Georgia after lashing Florida coast. Welcome. In a historic feat, a team of Indian mountaineers recently scaled an uncharted peak situated atop 20,942 feet near Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh and named it Tsangyang Gyatso. Yes, Tsangyang Gyatso Peak, to honor the sixth Dalai Lama. Sixth Dalai Lama was born in Tawang. The 15-member team led by Colonel Ranveer Singh Jamwal from the National Institute of Mountaineering and Adventure Sports, NIMAS, scaled the peak at Gorichen Range near Tawang on September 21st. The expedition began on September 7th. Arunachal Pradesh Chief Minister Pema Khandu congratulated the team for its feat. A statement by the Defence Ministry said that the choice of name of the sixth Dalai Lama was a tribute to the timeless wisdom and his profound contribution to Monpa community and beyond. Who is sixth Dalai Lama? The sixth Dalai Lama, Tsangyang Gyatso, was born in 1682. Born in Mount Tawang to Tashi Tenzing and V. Wong Lamo. In October 1697, he was enthroned as the sixth Dalai Lama. He was an erudite scholar, composed poems, songs, and practiced archery. He rejected the regalia that were associated with the position of Dalai Lama then. He wore simple clothes, freely mixed with commoners. He chose to walk rather than ride a horse or use the state palanquin. He was the only Dalai Lama ever who chose to give up his monastic vows. His unique lifestyle endeared him to the people. He built a large number of monasteries and had thousands of disciples. Now, who are Monpas? Monpas are the inhabitants of Tawang and West Kameng districts. Monpas are Buddhists. The term Monpa was coined by the Tibetans to refer to the people of Tawang. They've had a long-standing relationship with the Tibetans in terms of trade, culture and religion. Monpas speak Shangla, which belongs to the Tibeto-Burmanian family. Known for wood carving, Thangpa painting, carpet making and weaving. Practice shifting, cultivation, some permanent cultivation. Losar. The Tibetan New Year is the main festival for the Monpas. They have profound respect for forests surrounding their villages. However, this has left China livid and Beijing called the naming of the peak illegal. This is what the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said on the matter at a media briefing on Thursday. He said, let me say more broadly that the area of Tsangyang is Chinese territory, and it's illegal and null and void for India to set up the so-called Arunachal Pradesh in Chinese territory. This has been China's consistent position. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar had said on Tuesday that the relationship between India and China is significantly disturbed, noting that primary issue currently is patrolling along the line of actual control. And let me tell you, Hindi is spoken in Arunachal Pradesh. Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India, but China, what it does, whenever when sportsmen, sportswomen, they apply for a visa for an event, they are given staple visa. And off late, they have certain changes done in the maps too. But Jaishankar, in the conversation, added that India has had a difficult history with China and that India-China border needs to be peaceful so the relationship between the two can move forward. First, just let's listen into Jaishankar, how he summarizes it, and then I will introduce my guest. I am joined by Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan, former DG Assam Rifles, and Professor Prasanajit Biswas, Professor of Philosophy, Northeastern Hill University. Thank you, sir, both of you, for joining me. But let me take you through what Jaishankar said.
India has obviously a very, very acute border problem with China. I've been reading and hearing pretty encouraging things. You yourself said recently something to the effect of you assessed progress in disengagement at the sort of 75% mark. Your colleague, the National Security Advisor Doval, met recently with Wang Yi that generated pretty positive signals from both sides. At the same time, it's not much of a secret that India, shall we say, has a China problem. And so I wondered if you would give us some sense of what you see the prospects are for progress in the Sino-Indian relationship.
We have a difficult history with China, a history which included a conflict in 1962. It took us 14 years thereafter to send back to ambassadors. And it took another 12 years after that really to come to some kind of modus vivendi. And that happened in 1988. And the basis of that was that we would develop a relationship ensuring that there is peace and tranquility on the border. And on the border areas, because the border is not agreed to, the entire border, which is about 3,500 kilometers, is disputed. And so you make sure the border is peaceful so that, other parts of the relationship can move. Now, to make sure the border was peaceful, you had a series of agreements in 93, in 96, in 2005, 2006, 2012. So each one of these agreements went into greater and greater detail on how to ensure that the border remained peaceful and stable. Now, the problem was in 2020, despite these very explicit agreements, we saw that the Chinese, we were all in the middle of COVID at that time, if you remember, moved large number of forces in violation of these agreements to the line of actual control. And once troops, and we responded in kind, and once troops were deployed very close up, which is very dangerous, it was likely a mishap would happen, and it did happen. So there was a clash, and a number of troops died on either side. And that has since, in a sense, overshadowed the relationship. So until we are able to restore peace and tranquility on the border and ensure that the agreements which we have signed up to are adhered, it's obviously difficult to carry on with the rest of the relationship. So what has been the focus for the last 4 years is to, in the first instance, at least disengage the troops, which means that they go back to the to the military bases from which they traditionally operate, because right now both sides have troops who are deployed forward. And when I said 75% of it has been sorted out, I was asked in a way to quantify it to give a sense. It's only of the disengagement. So that's one part of the problem. And the main issue right now is the patrolling. How do we, both of us, I would say, patrol up to the line of actual control. And right now, the patrolling arrangements after 2020 have been disturbed. So we've been able to sort out much of the disengagement, the friction points, but some of the patrolling issues need to be resolved. But once we deal with the disengagement, there is the larger issue, which is both of us have brought very large number of troops up to the border. So there is what we call the de-escalation issue. And then there is the next step is really how do you deal with the rest of the relationship, because right now the relationship is very significantly disturbed. That said, there are other issues that we need to look at. I mean, you have two countries who are neighbors, who are unique in the sense that they are the only two countries with over 1 billion people, and who are both rising in the global order, and who often have overlapping peripheries as well, other than the fact that they have a common border. So it's very
Brahmaputra.
So it's really a very complicated issue. I think in the global, if you look today in global politics, the parallel rises of India and China, I would say, present a very, very unique problem.
The peak is near the line of actual control and is the west of the Gorichan complex of mountains, and India's decision to name the peak comes at the time when China has been changing names of places in the region. China claims Arunachal Pradesh, which is an integral part of India, calls it South Tibet. It has been renaming places in Arunachal Pradesh, which is called Tsangyang, since 2017 to assert territorial claims. And most important of all, it has renamed 30 places in Arunachal along the LOC in March 2024. India has rejected the Chinese claim, but the larger issue is of the Chinese expansionism. And today, with this, the larger question is this a strong message? It's just one peak, but is this a strong message? Let me straight away go to General Chauhan. Sir, is this a strong message? So, can you unmute yourself?
Good evening, Karthik.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for calling me on your show. Indeed, this is an important issue. It's extremely important because it's somehow we don't seem to be giving China the right message of saying, look, Arunachal Pradesh is ours. It will always be ours. It has always been ours. And you can't just start creating cartographic, warfare by renaming 30 places in Arunachal Pradesh and saying that it's a part of southern Tibet. So this is one issue which I felt very happy when I read what happened, and Colonel Jambal led the expedition to Gorichan and conquered this peak. It's an issue that we should do. We should rename every peak in Arunachal Pradesh to what we feel it should be the right name. So it's an extremely sensible, good, measured, and strong statement.
Okay. Professor Biswas, how significant is this?
In fact, renaming Gorichan Peak, in terms of 6th Dalai Lama, who, as you know, you have rightly pointed out, Gyatso is the 6th Dalai Lama. And Gyatso is a practitioner of Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism. And therefore, in terms of the sacredness of the place, it is ideal to name the peak in the name of Tsangyang Gyatso, the 6th Dalai Lama. But history is always something that is having an internal contestation. Against Tsangyang Gyatso, within the same school, there's another claimant of the sixth Dalai Lama's position, who goes by the name of the Nagawa Yeshe. And Nagawa Yeshe didn't exactly practice the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism, but he was practicing more of Mahayana Buddhism. So now for India to choose Gyatso to be the true inheritor is to go against also the mainstream Tibetan Buddhism, which is like an orthodoxy, like Brahmanism. So I would go with the spirit of renaming the peak in the name of Tsangyang Gyatso, because that actually provides an alternative cosmology of the entire universe. And as you know, in 1952, Tawang district became part of India, not just by an ordinary kind of a military expedition, but the conditions under which General Khating had brought Tawang into Indian territory is because Tawang area was not administered by the Chinese people properly, in the sense that they wanted to exclude this particular school of Tibetan Buddhism. Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism was excluded by China from its purview, even when the Tibetan Autonomous Council was formed by China, soon after the Chinese Revolution. So you can see here a complicated ideological contest, a contest between Chinese state ideology back in the days of 50s, which didn't want to recognize a certain school of Tibetan Buddhism, accusing it of superstition, of bigotry, of regressiveness, while this particular school of Buddhism, which is held even today as very sacrosanct in the Tawang monastery, practices something very, very extraordinary. Not only it connects itself to all the surrounding ecosystem, all the rocks, the plants, the snow caps, every bit of the mountain is named within the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism. And lot of herbal medicine knowledge, lot of indigenous knowledge about speciation of this northern and southern part of Tibet,
Okay.
both the parts of Tibet which are otherwise not inhabited. The speciation story becomes very important in order to understand the geopolitics of the northeastern region, where you have this Pangsau Pass, through which most of the communities of the northeast entered in the northeast, and Tibet is next to it. Therefore, it is historically significant to choose a kind of a protesting version of Buddhism in order to rename the particular peak, which is highly appreciated as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, Brijesh. Then the second question will come, again common to all my guests.
Well, I think, Karthikeya, one thing is very clear, with the way China has been, pretty aggressive, tried to encroach into areas into Ladakh, the way it has always, tried to say that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to us, never calls it Arunachal Pradesh, as you rightly mentioned, always giving staple visa and all. This particular aspect of, conquering an uncharted territory, peak before that, and also renaming it for the sixth Dalai Lama is definitely, the Chinese will not take it lying down, and that is the reason why that terse response from the Chinese, PRO has come up, the military PRO has come forward. But I think it's a very significant move, and this also shows India's assertion as far as the diplomacy is these tidbits game where one particular naming riles the Indian side, and they very vociferously blow back. I think this particular aspect of the army will definitely rile the Chinese side.
So the second question, General Chauhan, is that this is in the even more important for the Chinese in the around Tawang sector. Why is Tawang strategically and culturally so important?
Tawang is important, Karthik, because it's the center of Arunachal. It's the religious center of Arunachal. Also, the sixth Dalai Lama was actually from that particular place. It's also the place of the Monpas, and it belongs to India. It's not been rediscovered. It's just that Major Bob Kathim took a delegation or took a expeditionary force of the Assam Rifles and said, look, Tawang has always been a part of India, and we unfurl the flag, and this is a part of India. Whether it riles the Chinese or not, the important significance and the important statement that India always has to make, and which we have been making now for over 20 years, is that Tawang, not just 20 years, and from 1952 onwards, is that Tawang belongs to India, and it will never belong to Tibet and never belong to China. This particular issue by the Chinese to continue creating these kind of cartographic issues is to keep the line of actual control under continuous dispute. The idea is that when they're going to resolve this line of actual control, they will then have seen that, okay, we give you this and we take this. This is this has been their strategy from the very beginning. And I'm so happy that India has finally decided to start renaming these peaks after very important figures in the past. Tawang is actually the soul of Arunachal Pradesh, and that soul should never be in any way disturbed. It belongs to India, and I'm very happy that we have decided to rename this peak.
Jaishankar said that the ties are significantly disturbed. How has that altered our security approach, our organization of the border post Galwan? Because if you would recall our discussion on Kashmir, movement of troops, LOC, how has that altered it? Has it become one border, sir? LOC, LAC?
No, Karthik. Karthik, see, the idea is that we were very clear from the beginning that Arunachal belongs to us, and we have always held the watershed in the area of western and eastern Arunachal. We've always held the watershed. It's not that we didn't hold the watershed, and we've always, even in 1962 and even pre that particular period, said that Arunachal is ours. As far as we are concerned, how has it altered it? Well, we have now ensured that we have enough troops to prevent any kind of misadventure by China in this area. And we're not the army of 1962. We're an army of 2024. We are more than capable and confident that any misadventure by China in any way will be met and defeated. And that's the absolutely clear message that China has to understand, that India will not give up its own territory, and we will make sure that we continuously hold it. Every part of India is sacred to us, Karthik. And if there's a need, we will increase the number of troops. But
General Chauhan, do you ever remember any such renaming? You have worked extensively entire Northeast. Have you recall any such renaming like that? Perhaps of Vijayanagar, which was named?
That's right. So Vijayanagar was just short of the tri-junction in Arunachal Pradesh, and it was actually unheld areas. And it's not as if China ever sort of claimed that part of India. Once again, an expedition from the Assam Rifles went to Vijayanagar, found that it belongs to India, and we decided to occupy it. So it's been an issue that from the very beginning, India and we named it Vijayanagar, and we continue to hold Vijayanagar with forces from the Assam Rifles. So as far as we are concerned, Karthik, the signal to China must be a clear signal that we are not going to give up any part of Arunachal Pradesh, and what their view of Arunachal Pradesh being southern Tibet does not matter to us.
Because people forget that, General Chauhan, that there was an attempt after Galwan, a very significant attempt in Arunachal Pradesh, which was foiled. Absolutely. Because of better intelligence coordination, and it was a very powerful attempt done by the Chinese.
Absolutely, Karthik. And we will continue to do this. Any part of the line of actual control today is being held in strength and will be held in strength. Whether it is in the northern sector, whether it's the northeastern sector, or whether it's in the central sector, every part of our territories along the line of actual control with China is being held and will continue to be held. And that resolve India has shown and will continue to show that resolve.
Okay. Professor, the fact that this peak is in Tawang makes the renaming special?
Of course, because it's a kind of a continuum of a sacred geography that was set up by the 6th Dalai Lama to fulfill the wishes of 5th Dalai Lama. And I was talking to you about Gelugpa kind of Buddhistic practice, which depends more on discovering the subtlest part of the human mind. So the subtlest part of the human mind arises at 22,500 feet above the earth, above the sea level. And that is almost like reaching at a celestial point. And again, geopolitically, such a celestial point becomes very, very important, given that we haven't yet lost the situation of a traditional territorial warfare. Though China has moved into a hypersonic era with sixth generation kind of aircraft and also intercontinental ballistic missiles, yet holding on to such a height and a peak actually gives us such an advantage to countervail any Chinese attempt, which my previous speaker has rightly pointed out. But I want to look beyond that point of military supremacy. Actually, it's an ideological, spiritual supremacy that India is commanding by renaming that particular peak at that height and by invoking this whole history of a rebel monk who had set up in a very rebellious way a different kind of a monastery away from the mainstream Buddhism of Mahayana, Brahminical Buddhism. So therefore, in many ways, this act of renaming is a kind of celebration of an alternative tradition within Buddhism. And India being a land of religious harmony, where many streams of religious gurus have worked together, many communities have come through that tri-junction. Pangsa Upas, Nagas have come, Mizos have come, other Tibeto-Burman groups have come, Monpas have come, Sherdukun people have come, who are now the settlers in and around the Tawang monastery. So you can understand the kind of flow of people that have happened through this high
Okay, Professor, I'm really falling short of time because there's another very important, yes, there's very important debate waiting, Professor. There's very important debate waiting, you know. But this issue I had to pick up because I don't recall that such renaming had ever taken place. I had landed in Vijayanagar, I had the great opportunity in 2003 as a young defense correspondent to be in Vijayanagar, but it makes me immensely proud that we Indians have not only named it in Tawang sector, given it a name, sent a strong message to China. And I would, you know, there's an old saying that, you know, even one message.
Oh yes.
One message.
And especially the kind of diplomacy which Chinese does.
One message is strong enough, you know, is strong enough if they can make 500 changes, but this one message has done the job.